Hey there YouTube, AJ here, and it's time to start mocking up the rear end of my hot rod. So I'm going to be using a rear Banjo axle out of a 46 Ford truck for my hot rod, and there's some problems associated with doing that. So before I can mock it up, I have to adapt it for use in the hot rod with a transverse spring. Let me show you. So here is my axle in question, and it's got an open drive. And down here you'll see it has spring perches for parallel leaf springs. There's one on the other side under that bucket there, but that comes later. So these I will be removing because I'm not going to be using those. On axles that use a transverse leaf spring, there's normally a perch here. Well, as you can see, there's no perch for the spring located here on the flange. So I need to fix that. And I'm going to be doing that like they did in the old days. Over here, I have a set of Model A axle tubes. And you can see here they have a spring perch made into it. So what I got to do is dig these two out, that one over there and here, and then cut this off to where I can reuse this piece on my other axle. Now I've never done this before, and I couldn't find anything online to show me how to do it. So I'm just going to start by cutting off this flange and trying to keep as much meat as possible attached to this perch, and then take off the bare minimum I need to do when I actually go to mount it onto my other axle. So that's where we're going to start. This is what we got left here. This is where I cut it off the axle tube. I cut the end of the old shock mount. I won't be using those. I'm going to be using tube shock, so that's gone. Cut that off. Now, I know a lot of this I won't be using. You know, I'll probably be trying to save like from here through here and up. But cutting it off, I think, will make it easier for me to access this way to get a better cuts for what I need and keep as much meat as I can on this upper section here. I'm basically aiming to keep as much as this upper half of this flange as I can. So that's it for this step. Once I get out the other axle, start measuring up, see exactly how much I need to cut off of this. I will. Cutting through this hardened race here. Whew. That was something there. That was hard cutting through that. That's good hardened steel. So fortunately it was a little thinner at the spot where I was cutting. That's why I chose to cut where I did, because the tube had a narrow spot in it. But there we go. We'll keep moving on this one. I've cut off the axle tube support. This is what the axle shaft actually rides in at the end of the axle tube. These were attached here. Basically I cut these off, one, so I might be able to use them for something else later, and two, I'm trying to maximize the amount of steel that I keep The spring perch up here is going to bolt onto my new 1946 axle flange using these top two bolt holes here. I'm going to cut a U shape out in the middle so it'll drop over the axle, but I want to keep as much steel as possible to give this more strength and structure. And my rear radius rods will be bolting to the bottom of the axle tube flange. So basically these two bolts are going to go where those used to be. So I want this top piece to have as much steel down around here as possible. Hopefully in the end it'll almost look like it's one piece on the car. So what I gotta do next is cut off the bottom of this piece, and then before I can start enlarging the U shape in the middle to where it'll slide over the axle. That's the theory, at least. So we've cut apart that bottom section there. This is where the radius rods are going to bolt to. Now we need to start cutting out this center section. This is where it needs to be more precise. I want to cut away just enough to where Alright, so I dug out my axle so we can see what I'm working with, and I took off the nuts on the back side here. That's where we're trying to get this to go in and fit into. So using a variety of grinders and saws and files and stuff, I started hogging out the meat in the middle of this thing, get an idea of how it'll fit on here. The idea is cut this in where it'll go over the axle and slide back into those bolts. So I got it almost, not almost there. I got it on its way there. Came in here to check it, and I got another issue. On the back side of this axle, right here in the center of these two bolts, these are the top two, these are the bottom two, these are where my radius arms will bolt to. And this will bolt on the top too. But in the center here, there is a screw, some kind of access screw. I don't know what that is for. I don't know if it's grease or what. I don't see a Zerk fitting, so maybe that's where you put a Zerk fitting in. I don't know. But I don't think it would be beneficial to block that. And so now a lot of this work is going to be all for naught. I'm still going to try to save as much of the hanger as possible, but it looks like I'm going to have to cut them just above this Zerk fitting, which I have a tape measure on here. If I measure that from the bottom of the stud or the bolt to the top, there's a little flange that this Zerk fitting goes into, or a little boss flange, whatever you want to call it, on here on where the axle and the back, this flange here meets. So we'll cut them just shy of that, I guess, which means an inch from the bottom of the hole. So I could have saved myself a lot of work, but that's the way this stuff goes. So now I'm going to take these and come down 1 inch from the bottom of this hole, about there. Cut those off. I still got to hog out a bunch of metal up here, but fortunately I only worked on this one. Well, I did cut out some of the other one, but I won't have as much work to do on the other one now that I'm going to do it this way. So we're still trying to save as much as possible. We're still trying to make a factory looking piece here out of an original factory piece. But we got a different plan here, just not going to go all the way down. I wanted these to meet basically where the radius rod's bolted, but I'm just going to have to leave that open. It's not going to work. So we've relieved our piece of a lot more material now. It's starting to look like it might fit in here. I got a ways to go. Let's get this brake line out of the way quick. Probably gonna have to do some, once we get this all done, we're probably gonna have to do some there's actually brake fluid in that. Or water, something came out of it. Just crimp that off for now. We'll take this end and kind of bend it up out of the way. Eventually we'll probably have to deal with modifying some area in here for this, or making a special brake line to go around this. I don't know, we'll figure that out when it gets there. Okay, so we put this in here and we are still a ways off. I can see about half of the bolt. I still gotta make this opening bigger, this circle down here bigger, so it'll fit down tighter around here. But other than that, I think we're good. I might need to trim a little more off that back edge there to get around that boss on that flange, but we'll see when we get there. For now, I guess we'll just keep working on this here. I've opened that up a little bit more. It's not quite perfectly round. I got a little more fit and finish to do, I think, even after this. I want to test fit it, see, I don't want to go too far all at once. Oh, look at that. All right. We are in both boat holes. It's a little snug yet, and we're not all the way back, so I need to file out a little more. But yeah, we're almost there. Looks like we're going to have room to turn this brake line down and around the spring. We'll be okay there. It's going to be tight, but we'll do it. We'll make room. I'm going to take a little more meat off the top of the spring hanger here, make it prettier. We're getting there. Really close. So we can start working on the other one and see if we can't get it somewhat matching. That's a little snug. So there's a ridge on the back here. I'm going to take that off, smooth that off. I need to make this just a little bigger, not much. I might even just do it all by hand filing now at this point. Well, with the exception of smoothing out this top here to where that isn't weird lump on it. So we go ahead and finish this one and start cutting on the other one. Alright, so I've got both perches finished now. There's the right side one. This one might be a little tougher to see because of the light, but there's the left side one. Now I do still have to figure out the bolts, how long they need to be, because the backside ones especially are going to have the spring hanger here as well. So they're going to be larger bolts. I will probably, I don't know if I will completely weld this on to the flange. I will put tacks at least in several places to help hold it in place. I may end up welding it completely, I don't know yet. I know they make bolt-on spring perch kits. I don't think it would be an issue to just bolt them on, especially with the way I've designed it with all the strength in here. I think I'm good, but I'll consider it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Regardless of how I proceed with that part of it, I got to take these drums off, figure out what I need for bolt lengths. That's the next step, and then I need to get a spring done for it. And so that's coming up. I'm going to be working on reversing a spring. So until then, later YouTube.